Hey folks, welcome to the channel. On today's build, we're going to be putting together a little hunting knife made from a Damascus twist pattern. This one is a low layer, about 7 or 8 layers of 1095 and 15N20, but we're going to give it a really tight twist to give it kind of a vertical stripe pattern. Here I'm adding some borax flux right before I do the initial forge weld. That prevents a lot of scale from building up between the layers. Here it's just getting a light press just to set the weld. Now that the weld is set, I can get a little more aggressive with the press. Now I'm going to draw this out into a long square bar and get ready for the twist. One important step to a twist is to break the corners and round it out a little bit. That way when you twist it, you don't get those hard edges. You'll also notice I'm only rounding out the center. Each end I keep square so that I can clamp on my twisting wrench in order to do the twist. Okay, time to twist this sucker. Some people like to put this in a vise. I just find it easier to lock it into the press. Here I am with my modified pipe wrench, giving it a bunch of twists. I always tell people when you're doing a twist it twice as much as you think you need, and then twist it 10 more times. It'll always look better. Time to flatten this out and make our billet. You don't want to make it too thin here because you're going to have to grind off some of those highs and lows just so you don't get cold shuts. That's where the steel folds in on itself. But since we rounded out the bar before we twisted it, we should be fine with cold shuts. Now I'm just taking it to the anvil and getting a little bit of width, and I'm doing that with a hammer just so it's a little easier and I have more control. I started to hammer in the tip here, but then thought I might be distorting the pattern a little bit, so kind of stopped doing that, and then moved over to putting in a little bit of the curve just so the lines would flow really nicely, and I think I achieved that. This is another piece of Damascus from a previous project. I wanted to use this for the guard just so I had some Damascus to flow between the guard and the blade. So I'm just hammering this out to get some length. So there it is after forging. I decided I wasn't going to forge this one to shape just because I didn't want to distort the lines here too much. So there's the rough pattern I'm going to use. I'm not going to stick to it very strictly, so I'll draw it out roughly and then let's grind out the pattern. The weld between my piece of rebar handle and the knife was so seamless that I ended up actually just using part of that rebar as the tang. And that worked out really well, so it saves me a little steel and I can make a longer blade. So here it is after a quick etch. I've done most of the profile, took it down on the surface grinder so it's nice and flat. I kind of like the profile, and the pattern on this one, it kind of reminds me of this mammoth molar that people are using these days. It would be a good look for this knife.
Time to do the false edge on the top. If you've seen any of my other videos, I really like to do this by hand with a file, and that's what I use this file jig for. It's time to do the initial bevel pre-heat treat. Here I'm just marking some lines of how far I want to grind up to. I was thinking while I was editing this that it's time to do another video just on grinding, so I'm not going to give you a ton of detail here, but for those that want more tips on grinding, stay tuned to my Triple T videos for one coming up soon on grinding. Freehand grinding is all about setting that initial bevel angle and then using thumb pressure to move that bevel where you want it. I usually like to do 80% of my bevel grinding pre-heat treat and then just finish it off after heat treat with a higher belt. I also like to add the sharpening choil, which is just a small notch at the end of the blade near the plunge line, just to make it easier to sharpen. I like to do this pre-heat treat as well with a file. It's time to do some normalization cycles on this blade. I'll start at 1600, then do one at 1450, and then 1250. Each one is about 10 minutes soak. After each normalization cycle, I like to pull the blade out and let it hang perfectly vertical in still air until it's cold. If you're curious about the whole process of heat treating a knife, I got a great video on that I'll link up here in the corner. Let's quench this steel and turn it into a knife. That's a 65 HRC hardness file. It's biting just a tiny bit, and the 60 skates, so this blade is pretty hard. Now I want to do the final bevel grinding. I've got a fresh 120 grit belt just to finish this blade off.
So here it is after the final grinding. I'll usually just take this top down with sandpaper, so but pretty fine edge on it. Yes, I'm happy how it turned out. I've got the guard here that I just put some basic shape on, took it to the mill and got it all parallel. Next video we're going to slot the guard, put the guard on it, and finish off this knife.
Thanks for joining me on this one, folks. I'm pretty happy how this one's turning out.
We'll finish it up in the next video, hopefully. But for now, I'm off on vacation. You're going to see this while I'm gone. So take a look. If you haven't already, please hit that like button and subscribe. And we'll see you on the next one.